This is going to be the panel that closes the program up and brings things together in terms of talking about how do you go about selecting a location and what are the locations that are most available and most ready and most profitable today. We have a really, really good panel with us today.
Well, first of all, thank you to Nearshore Nexus. Eric, this has been an excellent and informative event. The topic of my discussion is Globalization X, what we really refer to as the next wave of globalization. This is a term that Avasant has been using, I would say, for the past 2 years. And Globalization X encompasses some of what we believe are the new ingredients for why organizations are looking to outsource or offshore. So just a little bit about our firm. I won't bore you, but we have 3 primary practices. The first one is technology optimization, which focuses on IT strategy. The second one is sourcing advisory, which supports buyers in their selection of providers. And there's globalization advisory, and we are fortunate to support many of you and countries and nation states in their attraction of foreign investment and foreign direct investment. And Globalization X takes us to the next level. And the next level of outsourcing, in many cases, has very little to do with what were the reasons for doing it in the past. When we talk about going to Africa or selecting a region in India or selecting a country in Latin America, it's always been about the same thing, right? It's been about cost arbitrage and skill availability. But today, our Fortune 500 clients are really looking at it from a different perspective. They actually want market access. They want to use that first step into a new market to actually sell services, to be more competitive. And they want to integrate that into their global strategy. When we talk about market access and making decisions about globalization for our clients, it's always about the same thing. What are we getting out of it? Of course, the primary focus of this panel is the Latin America region. I was asked to give a little broader overview so we can see how Latin America stacks up and how things are playing. And then of course, my distinguished panelists are going to dive into a little bit more detail. But you can see here 31% of the GDP is across these 4 primary regions and countries, 60% of the world's population. So again, our clients are looking to enter from a very strategic market access perspective. They want to generate revenue, top line. It's not, again, just about cost savings. And when we talk about Latin America, it is helpful to think of it as a region, because most of the service providers that Avasant deals with on a day in and day out basis are not necessarily looking at it as a country strategy. They want to also diversify their risk. They might have shared centers that are interconnected between 2 countries. They want to be able to take advantage of load balancing or certain skill sets. So it is important that we think about ways to partner with each other. And I know there are many countries here represented. And part of what we are only now starting to see is how these countries are looking for ways to partner with each other, creating economic zones together and sharing resources together.
Everyone is looking for the next great market for bilingual English, and they're wanting to find cost reduction, because really it's all about the margin, as we know. And there's an evolution of these markets that's extraordinarily dynamic and changing, and I can tell you that on one country I have them on 2 slides because it's so dynamic. So in 2005, we had very hot markets in Mexico and Costa Rica, Panama, Chile, and Argentina. Now I've got to find the clicker. Multitasking here. And if we look at 2012, we're seeing as pretty good hotspots as El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Colombia, with their stable democracy and their good regulatory environment. And Brazil, and what we're seeing in Brazil, however, is a little different. It's not serving the US market so much. It's primarily in-country work, a lot of IT work, and we're seeing a lot of our Fortune 500 companies establishing or expanding their regional Latin America headquarters. It's very interesting then to compare the two. So blue is 2005 and green is 2012. Mexico, obviously, everybody's familiar with their story, their safety concerns and issues that kind of fell off the radar as being a hot spot. It still has excellent opportunities. There's still a lot of companies very successfully operating there. In Chile, they have a different story. They have very successfully managed to switch from a BPO type of economy to a very solid IT economy. And that is what the hope would be for a lot of the different hotspots that we're seeing right now. Panama, we're seeing, is obviously kind of fell off the radar because of saturation and the cost of labor for the bilingual English market. And also, I think it's a funny story about Colombia. Who would have thought 7 years ago, in 2005, when we looked at the hot map, that would be a hot market? The perception has changed. We heard why this morning. We saw why this morning. So then Costa Rica, as you'll see, is the only country that is both 2005 and 2012. And why is that? In our opinion, it's because they have a very ample and easy free trade zone status application and process. They also have a well-educated and bilingual labor supply. And it's very, very Western and oriented in its business processes. So in A markets, obviously, and some, as you know and can understand, have reached saturation. But Panama, we determine very much was an early entry into the market, but as we talked about, saturated with higher labor costs. Jamaica, we see Montego Bay, and we're watching very closely the convergence entry into Kingston to see how that labor market works for them. Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, we have this as an A and a B because sometimes we look at the market and we see that it's saturated and it's matured, and then another month we'll look at it in 2012 and see that there's room for opportunity. Monterrey we have on here, but we believe it should be watched because we see some exits and we think there could be opportunity. Mexico City and Bogota, although reports are very clear that the English is very saturated. So the B markets we're seeing are nearly saturated, but they're very matured. Would be Managua. We do see room there. They are quite a success story. They have a very easy floating free trade zone status. It doesn't take very long to get up and running with their free trade zone. They've made it very simple, and it's very advantageous and business friendly. I know that Citel has had some excellent success there as well. San Salvador, we're hearing though for the last couple years that the English has been extraordinarily saturated. Guadalajara, again the Dominican Republic, and Querétaro, Mexico. C markets being tested. San Pedro Sula, KM2 and StarTech have located there in the past year and a half, maybe two. And we're hearing reports from them that they're very happy with the customer satisfaction scores. The labor supply is plentiful, and that they're hearing really good reports on labor and the willingness to work and the English. They're having to do some accent neutralization training, but overall it's very good. Barranquilla, Sutherland has had some luck there. I know Sykes is forging ahead. We'll be watching that market pretty closely. Cali, Medellin, and Haiti keeps coming up. Clients keep bringing it up. But in our opinion, it's not quite ready, but we will keep it on our watch list. Belize pops up, but our opinion says it's not ready. And Aguascalientes, Mexico, a very IT savvy, heavy in manufacturing, obviously. It would require a slow ramp because the English needs to be tested a little bit more, and but it is a very pro-business, Western culture city.
To talk about services is to talk about people. And I'm going to talk about the people of Latin America and the Caribbean. Right now we're undergoing a process which the sociologists and the demographers call the demographic bonus. The average age in the region is 27. A very large segment of the population is thus very young, increasingly more educated, and more prosperous. By 2040, the growth of the labor force of Latin America and the Caribbean is going to be bigger than the labor force of the US or the European Union. Latin America and the Caribbean is the most urbanized developing region in the world. 80% of our people live in cities. As you know, services are exported from cities. There are 500 urban centers in Latin America and the Caribbean with population 100,000 to 2 million. I think we have to wake up to Latin America. That's where the investment should be thinking strategically to go. That's the emerging region, and it's right here in the backyard with the same time difference as the US, with great cultural affinity. Public-private partnerships, so in order to train people to be employed by the companies, the latest certifications in whatever field. And I'm talking from the whole wide spectrum, from a call center operator to biotechnology. So it's really not just ITO, BPO, KPO. It's a whole spectrum.
Fabrizio, you talked about 500 large urban centers in Latin America, and you're a site selector. How do you work with 500 opportunities, potential opportunities, and start whittling them down to the best choices for companies?
Well, I think...
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I mean, of course you do your numbers, what you were saying, you look at the variables, objective, but increasingly we find that, there are institutions out there of government, and we'd be glad to put you in touch with them if you'd like, that are willing to help you, that give you a very customized service, that pick you up at the airport, that establish incentives. You have to know, of course, the right people in terms of going to institutions of government, of those investment promotion agencies, of ProExport in Colombia, Corfo in Chile, Uruguay 21, Apex in Brazil. We know them all, but you have to really reach out and see all the incentives that are out there, which there are. And it's not just free trade zones. I'm not talking only about tax incentives. This partnerships for training, for example, they are a variable that is determinant. If there's a training program with resources that is training the people in the skills that you want, because what's this thing with finishing schools? The content is determined by the private sector. You're going to need each year to hire 100 people with certain skills, with certain certifications. Our programs are funding that tuition of that human capital that you're going to hire, because the content is being determined jointly with the private sector. So yes, to look at the initiatives, to look at the program, to look at the demographics, very important, of growth, and to look at also the economic projections, which are not bad. Latin America has been very resilient to the global crisis.
We do a risk analysis with our clients. We sit down and we ask, what is it, an intake, basically? What is it you're looking for? Do you need bilingual English? Are you needing IT? What type of IT? What is exactly are you looking for? So when you look at 500 urban centers, not all of those are going to work for everybody. Are you needing Portuguese? What do you need? And then we'll go from there. And then we'll determine if how risk adverse they are, or how they wouldn't mind a little risk. Read the article on Nearshore Americas that I wrote about 16 pieces of information or advice that you need to have, not information but advice for investment promotion agencies. There's no Census Bureau, we understand that. Data is not reliable, and I'm sorry, when you overpromise and underdeliver, it is deadly to you. I'm not going to trust you again. We do boots on the ground, as you said, but we also call it an immersion. We'll go and send myself or one of our senior project managers down to spend a week in a city, and we go in and we just live there for a week as if, can we do business? We do focus groups, we do interviews, because I'm sorry, we can't trust your data.
We started out in cost reduction, labor arbitrage. Have we changed?
I think those continue to be drivers, and data, I think, it really is the key to all of this. When we look at a study Avasant's about to publish actually in the next month, it's a study funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. And that study, we looked at approximately 32 countries across Asia, Latin America, and Africa. And within those regions, we actually did some analysis around risks, skill availability, human capital cost, access to public utilities, and the like. What we find is that when we get into this cost equation, it's quite complicated, because just because we think we're getting a low-cost region because there's a opportunity at a lower cost labor, because the labor rate is A and it's B somewhere else. It's much more complicated than that, because the center, the facility, the tax regime, all of this bears into creating a real cost analysis. So when we, for our clients, we do a very detailed analysis, really it's a financial business case for understanding the cost equation. But what I was referring to in my presentation in part was, what are the other business drivers, the market-oriented, strategic business drivers that are making these decisions, that are driving customers to make decisions on where they want to go. And increasingly, they want, it's not just price, but they also want the ease and synergies with the business. So when we think about how are we going to court a Sony or a Toyota or whoever, Fortune 500 company, we need to create that custom solution to mitigate their risks, identify synergies for them, potentially even identify business opportunity. So hopefully
that's helpful.
is helpful.
One of the biggest risks that we've heard in Latin America today is scalability. The fact that in many locations we don't have enough resource, people.
I do think that the Latin America region is scalable, but individual countries may not be, and individual cities may not be. So again, it's that partnership cross-region, I think, that is absolutely critical, particularly in the Caribbean, where we have a real problem, right, with the numbers. We have a numbers issue.
While performing research for a new delivery center, a low-cost delivery center in Latam, I'm from CPM Praxis Capgemini, I was advised to look for red taping, right? How do you do it? Since it's something that is underlined or secret, what's your advice to look for what is not being shown?
Anyone?
Red tape in the process, or the setting up the business, or?
When we are looking for...
Do you mean corruption?
Not corruption.
No, procedures, bureaucratic.
Procedures,
Yeah.
bureaucratic
Bureaucracy,
problems.
Bureaucratic, and when they are not showing what they don't want you to see.
Oh. Well, I think that comes from experience.
There you
don't
go, exactly.
Kevin? I mean,
Yeah, the question, when they were looking for a new location, they were advised to beware and look for a location where there may be red tape and bureaucratic issues. And I think Ann has got the answer there.
To try to find and uncover the red tape in any location, it just comes from experience, because when you ask a governmental agency, they're going to tell you, oh, it's no problem. You can set up here, your free trade zone will be done in 30 days, and we guarantee you'll have 1,000 employees. Nope, no problem. But you know, there's always red tape, and if you don't have someone guiding you through the process who has experience in those markets, you don't always know. And sometimes we're even surprised. Even if we've been in a market and doing work there for 10 years, sometimes a new administration will come in. That's why I say with investment promotion agencies, even if the political structure changes at the federal or state level, you need to keep the same people as long as you can in those investment promotion agencies, because they will understand how to dodge those bullets. Yeah. They'll understand how to get around and what to look for and to guide you in the right way.
And I think that part of that process is your due diligence, and it's talking not only with the government people, but with the last company that came in. Did they have the experience that you're told the experience would be? And it's that kind of due diligence and research that enables you to have a better process for yourself. And I think talking with professionals who've been through it and taken others through it, and talking with companies that have gone through it, is really the way. I want to thank the panel again, and thank you.